Hey guys, this is Satyajit Patnaik and welcome back to my channel. And today in this video, we shall be talking about another end-to-end project. And this time it is going to be on an unsupervised learning model. Now, in my videos, I have also done two or three more end-to-end projects, and I realized that those are the main videos of my channel, and those are the videos which got the maximum views. So my focus currently will be getting more and more end-to-end projects. So stay tuned on my channel. If you are not liking it, please like, share, and subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon to get notified on my future videos. So today, as I already told, that we are here for an end-to-end clustering project, end-to-end customer segmentation type of project, and we will be talking about the business understanding, what exactly is the use case, what is the data set all about, and how are we going to create a model out of it, and then we will also talk about the deployment part. So let's get quickly started on this. And in the future, in couple of days, I'm also planning to get more and more machine learning, EDA, Power BI, all these kind of end-to-end projects very soon. So stay tuned. Now, the topic of today's presentation, today's call is going to be on market segmentation. Now, before talking about the segmentation and the unsupervised learning technique, I hope you know the basics of machine learning. You know that there are three types of machine learning. One is going to be supervised learning, one is unsupervised, and one is reinforcement learning. I'll probably try to get another video on this particular topic on my channel very soon so that you can go through it and then come back to this project if you are not familiar with unsupervised learning. Now, the business use case is must. Whenever you are solving a problem, be it a machine learning project or a data analytics project or a computer vision project, it doesn't really matter which type of project it is. What really matters is the business understanding. What are you trying to solve? Because that is the first question the interviewers will ask you when taking interviews. Now we'll get started with the business understanding and the data sets, and I'll quickly talk about what was my approach and how did I solve this problem. So the use case is market segmentation. Now talking about segmentation, there are so many use cases related to segmentation in many industries. Customer segmentation, customer profiling, transaction segmentations, news segmentation, creating groups out of it, similarity based on customers. So these kind of things that do not have a label data, you don't know what exactly needs to be done. Those kind of problems are basically called as unsupervised problem. Now, we will be using a machine learning based market segmentation project. This is the project. What exactly is market segmentation? Now, in marketing, market segmentation is the process of dividing a broad customer or business market, normally consisting of existing and potential customers, into subgroups of consumers based on some type of shared characteristics. It basically means that we want to create multiple segments. Okay. And we don't know based on which characteristic we are going to do it. That is the reason we are analyzing each and every characteristic, and based on that we will be creating some sort of segments. In terms of machine learning, segments are called as clusters. A case requires to develop a customer segmentation to give recommendations like saving plans, loans, wealth management, etc. on target customer groups. So we'll quickly go ahead with the objective. This is the objective. Are they price sensitive? Are they more or less likely to be risk averse? Do members of their household have an existing relationship with your institution? So these are various objectives of this particular use case. Okay, you can go through this particular use case PDF file. I will also leave the PDF file in the description below so that you don't miss it out, because what I'm going to deliver you is an end-to-end project with the business understanding document, with the code, with Streamlit application, live, everything will be provided to you. About the data set, from where did we get the data set? Well, I got it from some Kaggle repository, but I don't remember exactly. But the sample data set summarizes the usage behavior of about 9,000 active credit card holders during the last 6 months. So this is some sort of a insurance or BFSI domain level of problem statement. The file is at a customer level with 18 behavioral variables. We have balance frequency, purchases, one-off purchases, installment purchases, and so on. Cash advance, purchases frequency, one-off purchases, installment frequency, cluster, tenure, all these are the different variables of the data set. Okay. What were the toolkits and the algorithms that were used? Well, toolkit was simple. We used Python to solve this problem, and we used some different clustering techniques like dbScan, k-means, hierarchical clustering, which is also called as agglomerative clustering. So these are the algorithm side. Tool side, we use Python, of course, because I love Python. Streamlit is also used here, open source framework for machine learning and data science. It is basically used to deploy your products, and a Jupyter notebook also is used. So what were the different algorithms used in this project? We used k-means clustering, dbScan, spectral clustering, agglomerative, and Gaussian mixture of model-based clustering. Now, I might not have the end-to-end code of all these clustering techniques which were tried and tested, but while we created the model, we used k-means clustering because that gave us better results. Okay, so I'll be showing you k-means clustering for sure. These were the different steps taken and the different processes to follow. Whenever you are solving a business problem, machine learning, AI, data science, whichever problem you are solving, research and business understanding is a must, right? The first thing you have to do before you solve a problem is to define exactly what is it. You need to be able to translate data questions into some actionable items. That is the first criteria to get started with a data set or a use case. Then comes your data pre-processing techniques. How to clean it, null value imputation, unstructural to structural, all these kind of processing steps are also covered in this data pre-processing steps. After data pre-processing, it is required that the output of a data pre-processing is always a clean data, right? Once you have the clean data, after pre-processing, your very next step is to do a DEDA, exploratory data analysis, so that you get some insights from the data. Simple. After EDA is done, model building, and then model deployment. This is how a normal data science project process works. Moving on to the next slide, these were some of the insights generated. I'll definitely show you all these insights, how this overall analysis is created. Now, I'll leave this document to you. I hope you had an initial idea about this project. Now, quickly jumping into the data set. Now, this is how the data set looks like. I have purchases, one-off purchases. All these are different candidates' behavior. Okay. Now you can see there is no variable which we are going to predict, right? Let's say I'll just format it. Okay, there is no variable which we are going to forecast or predict. So this type of problem is basically called as an unsupervised learning technique, where you are analyzing multiple features and trying to create some groups out of it. We don't know how many groups to create, right? So that is the reason it's an open-ended question. And to solve open-ended items in machine learning, we use some unsupervised learning techniques. As I have told you again, I'm also going to release a video on supervised versus unsupervised learning. But if you are watching my video, I'm pretty much sure that you already know unsupervised learning. If you don't have, then either you go through my video or else go through some of the blogs which will give you some understanding, and then you can jump onto this project. These are some of the attributes which has been used, and we have tenure. Now, our first step is to get started with our code base. So this is the code which we have used. We have imported the libraries. So any library that I forget and add, like let's say I have started with my coding, and after certain number of lines, I'm using a matrix, or I'm using a model, or I'm using a method which is a part of XYZ library. So I definitely use the import statement in the very first code. So this block is basically your import block, where you import all your necessary libraries for this particular code. Simple. I'll not be able to run this code, but all the results are already on the screen because it is pre-run, and I'm just opening it in collab.research.com. So that is the reason I will not be able to run this. But if you want, I can also run, but it's okay. You can run it by yourself. Now here I have read the data frame, pd.read CSV to read the data. And these are my details, customer ID, balance, so on, right? So many features are there. Then starts your exploration of data, exploratory data analysis. Okay, exploratory data analysis begins. Now, here I'm doing a shape operations to see how many rows and how many columns do we have. So we have 18 columns and 8,950 records. Dot info basically tells you how many null values do you have. Like this column, minimum payments has some null values. This column also has some null values, like one null value. So your first priority should be treat the null values. Then I'm doing a describe method to get the statistical information about the data. Then I'm doing isNull.sum. So this basically gives you a clear idea of how many null values do you have. Minimum payments has 313 null values. So 313 divided by 8950 multiplied with 100, around 3% of null data. So either you remove these 313 records or you impute it, doesn't matter, because it's just 313 records. So here I'm filling it with the mean value. I'm doing a null value imputation here. I'm filling it with a mean value. Now, if you ask me why mean, why not median? Well, all these questions are already answered in one of my EDA videos, which was around 2 hours of video, where I've clearly explained what should be a strategy. If you don't know, if you haven't watched that video, probably I'll try to give the link in the description or in the I button. You can check it out. But the intuition behind what needs to be done has already been explained. See, it always start with one option, get started with the model building part, and then see whether your model is performing well or not. If not, come back to this step and impute it in a different way. So here I'm using a mean value imputation. Now I'm checking the dot sum and I don't have any null values because all the null values are imputed. Nice. Then I'm dropping my customer ID because, well, customer ID is a randomly generated number and it doesn't really make sense. It has no importance, right? You might have a customer ID of 1, I might have a customer ID of 2. Doesn't really matter that we both are same in nature, right? So customer ID is not at all useful for any machine learning models. That is the reason we have dropped it. Here I'm plotting my graph. So I'm plotting my graph to see the distribution of the graph. I'm plotting a KDE plot. What is KDE? Kernel density estimation plot. It basically tells you whether the column is following a normal distribution or is it skewed or is it having kurtosis, all this kind of information. Basically tells you where the density of the data is. Kernel density estimation. You can see balance frequency. None of them is having a normal distribution. That's the initial idea which we are getting. Here also I'm doing a similar KDE plot, but I'm using some other techniques. I'm using dist plot. What is dist plot? Seaborn has a library called Seaborn is a library. Seaborn has a method called as dist plot, which basically has two. Dist plot is a combination of KDE plot plus histograms. Dist plot is nothing but distribution plot. So I'm using the dist plot. If you need more information, you can probably Google it out. Dist plot is a flexibly plot a univariate distribution of observations, and it usually has two different things in one single plot, the histograms and the KDE plot. Okay, similarly I'm doing it for all these options here, and trust me, this is one of the use cases which can easily fit in your resume. So, but I don't recommend you to directly copy paste my code and then use it. It's always recommended Follow the video, follow the code, but create your own piece of code or create your own project out of it. Here I'm doing a correlation matrix. So I hope everybody knows about correlation function. It basically checks the linear correlation between multiple variables. Let's say randomly speaking about one function near, it's a lighter, okay, 0.6 is. So CAS advance has a direct correlation with CAS advance transaction, which is quite obvious, right? Now selecting the data frame, scaling the data frame. So here I'm performing the feature scaling operation. What is feature scaling? I hope everybody knows that in machine learning, we always have to scale down, because if your columns are having multiple values, let's say your age is having 31, 29, something like that. That means tens places, 2-digit. Your salary is a 5-digit element. Now, if you pass all these numerical objects without scaling it, then your machine learning model could be biased. So it's always recommended to do feature scaling. So I'm doing a standard scaler here, I believe. What is scaler? Scaler. Yeah, I'm doing standard scaler. Okay. It's not a right approach to do it here itself. So what I can do is I'll just copy paste it here and I will do it here. Okay. I have initiated my standard scaler and then I'm doing a fit transform on the data frame. Here I'm randomly doing PCA. Well, as I have already explained, this is your end-to-end project code, right? So what happens is we directly don't go for PCA. I hope everybody might be knowing about it. If not, you need to do a more reading about it. Normally in machine learning, what happens is we write some piece of code, then get the accuracy, then perform some hyperparameter optimization, then get some accuracy. Then we might realize that we are doing something wrong in the feature engineering process. We go back to that process, we do some PCA, do some LDA. So it's a hit and trial process. So this piece of code is your final piece of code. That means all the hit and trial I have already done. Now I know that PCA is correctly working in this particular use case. But in case you are practicing this problem, don't try with PCA initially. Do all your work without PCA and then do it with PCA and then compare the results. Right. So I have done a PCA of n equals to 2 components so that we can visualize the data. So I'm getting PCA1 and PCA2. Again speaking, if you don't know about PCA, principal component analysis has already been explained properly on my channel. I have 2 videos on PCA. One is PCA for maths and one is PCA practical implementation. I'll again leave that video's link in the description below and in the I button so that you can go through. And here, after performing PCA, I'm performing some hyperparameter tuning, finding the K value by elbow method. I hope people who are working on K-means clustering, K-means clustering, that means K is basically number of clusters. We identify K using a elbow method, right? Using the WCSS technique within sum of squares, within sum of the squares clustering technique, right? So basically we calculate WCSS for each K value and then we plot the graph and we see wherever we are forming a elbow. Let's say here, it's basically kind of an oval shape. So there is no elbow, but I can randomly pick my K value as 5 or 6, somewhere here or somewhere here. Maybe K value at K value 4, the graph is forming an elbow. So that is the reason we take that value as a K value. Here I have taken K value as 4 because you can see slight curve is in this area. So slight curve is here. So it is something like this and then slightly there is a curve. So again, it's just a human method, manual method. So I have randomly taken K as 4. And here I'm model building using K-means. I'm doing K-means and I'm performing PCA. And here you can see I have performed 4 clusters and these are my 4 different clusters. This is green cluster, this is blue, this is red, and this is black. So there are 4 clusters that has been formed. Now, what does that mean? This means The customers who are falling in the blue area, all are similar in nature. Customers falling in the green area, all are similar in nature. And similarly for red and black. But is 4 clusters best? No. Whenever you get a k value using your elbow method, always do a plus minus operation. Let's say k, you see that k is 4, always try for 5, 6, and 3 and 2 as well. It's always recommended. So here what I'm doing is, after my k-means clustering is done, here I am getting all the cluster centers and inversing the transform data, because we have already performed the standard scalar. So I have already performed the transformation. Now to get the original data, we have to inverse transformation. So inverse transformation is done. And if I print the cluster underscore centers, you can see that this is how the data looks like. Now here I am doing a concatenation of my original data frame and k-means underscore models dot labels. What is k-means model? This is my k-means model, right? Wherever I have called my k-means, where is k-means? K-means. Yeah, here, this one, k-means model. This is nothing but my k-means model, right? And here I'm doing k-means model dot labels underscore. What is k-means model dot label underscore? If I talk about it, k-means clustering sklearn, you can go to the documentation and understand. Labels of each point. Okay. And here, if I print my cluster df, I'm getting a data like this with another column called as cluster. Now you can see this customer belongs to cluster 1, this customer belongs to cluster 2. So this customer and this customer are similar in nature with this customer. So the first customer, fourth and fifth customer are similar in nature. How? Based on these attributes and based on my k-means clustering model. And then I am dividing the data into multiple clusters because I already have the cluster column. So for cluster 1, I'm getting a new data frame, cluster 0, new data frame, cluster 3, new data frame, and so on. And then I am trying to plot some graphs between them so that I can understand. Here is the cluster distribution. So cluster 0 and 1 has the highest number of data points. Cluster 2 and 3 are having low data points, right? And similarly here also, I am doing some facet grid to understand the distribution of different clusters. Let's say balance. What I have done is I have printed all the clusters balance data. Now you can see cluster 3, the balance distribution is very low. So blindly, if any customer comes in whose balance will be low, like will be around this area, then probably you can say that this customer belongs to cluster 3, right? That is the whole point of this exercise. We are creating a segmentation algorithm or some sort of clustering algorithm where tomorrow, if a new customer comes in, if you ask me which type of customer it is, I can directly tell that this customer might belong to cluster 3 or cluster 2, and his characteristics are something like this, right? Trust me, there will be no use case around clustering in the web. I'm not pretty sure if you have an end-to-end use case like this, but this is one end-to-end use case. After my model building is done, I'm going to save my clustering model. To save my model, I'm using joblib.dump. I'm saving it as a pickle file. And here, I'm also saving my final cluster DF as a cluster data set. You can see this is how the new data set looks like. It already has a cluster column, which says that this belongs to cluster 1, this belongs to cluster 3. Okay, going back to the code, here I have done some training and testing of the model. And here I am saving the decision tree for, okay. So here, till here, so far we have already saved the data and saved the data set, right? If you see the data set, this is how the data set looks like. We have A to R columns where R is cluster, which basically means 1, 3, 0, something like that. So we have 4 valid values. right? Now, this can become a classification problem. How? Well, these are your different classes. Now you can train this data to create a classification model where there are 4 classes. So it's not a binary classification model, it's a 4-class classification model. Simple. So going back to the code, here I'm dropping my cluster method, cluster column for my x-axis, and for my y variable, I am doing only cluster. So all these A to Q becomes your X variables or your independent variables, and R variable becomes your dependent variable, because you are going to predict your R function, R column now. And now the unsupervised model has been converted to a supervised model. And this is how we also solve some of the industry level problems in real life. Going back to the code, here I'm doing a training and test split, and then I have called my decision tree classifier with entropy criterion, and with I'm doing the model dot fit, and then calling the model dot predict, and then I'm calling my confusion matrix to check how the results are. And you can see the results are actually very good. 0, 1, 2, 3 precision recall is superb, and F1 score is also very good. Now what I'm doing is I'm saving the decision tree model for future prediction. So decision tree whose model accuracy is 93%, and I'm saving the file. So the pickle file is saved under final underscore model dot sav. So this is where our end-to-end project is over. Now one thing is left, the model deployment part. As I have committed you, I'm showing you end-to-end project. So business understanding, everybody knows right now what exactly the dataset is all about, how unsupervised learning models has been converted into supervised, how we have done predictions, and how we have saved the data. Right. Now comes the most important thing, which is your conversion of this entire piece of code or this model to a Streamlit application. So here I have used app.py. I will not be able to, okay, let me just open Spider. In Spider, I will be able to show this app.py. Converting a model to a Streamlit function is super easy. So I do have some videos on Flask, but how to convert it into Streamlit, I don't have any videos. But if you want, I can have a video on my channel as well on this. Now, going to this app.py, you can see here I'm using the final model, and then you're reading the clustered customer data, blah, blah, blah. And I'm converting into a Streamlit function. Okay. I'll probably have another video for Streamlit application, how to convert a raw data set, or sorry, a raw model to a Streamlit function, to a Streamlit application. I'll create a new video on that. But for the time being, you can simply use this app.py. And in case you are doing some changes to your model, you can do it here, save your model here, and here you use your same model. That's it. Now, to run this application, it's very simple. I will go to command line. I'll just increase the font a little bit so that it is visible to you all properly. And here I'll go to my location. If you don't know how to run a Streamlit application, well, I know, but I'm just showing you. Randomly, what you can do is you can run the Python file, python app.py. Automatically, it will throw you an error that this is not a normal Python file. It's a Streamlit function. So this is how you should run it. And you can see warning has been created, and it has already showed that this is how you should run this. So copy paste, run, and great. Your application is ready. Your local URL is ready, and your application is already opened on a different tab. Now we will be doing some, well, just don't care about these names. These are just some names being used here. Yeah, it's just a title here. Maybe I can change it to market segmentation, something like that, and just close it and rerun this. Not sure about the cache memory, but I think it should be able to work fine right now. Now my application is ready. You can see market segmentation. All these are my different options. The default values has been provided already. And if you submit it, it will tell you that what is the cluster category. So let's say I'll pass random values, balance, purchases 1, 1, 1, and let's take some random data, right? Let's take this customer's data, but will not copy paste the entire customer's data. Okay, let's just use some of his information. Balance, let's say we'll put it as 40. Balance frequency 0.5. 95. Purchases 95. One off purchase 0. Okay, 0. Installments purchase 95. I'll just copy paste it. 0. So I'm not exactly copy pasting all this information. I'm just copy pasting some data. Let's say instead of this, I'll give 0.2. Again, this is 0. Purchases will be 0.08. So I'll give it as 0. Cash advance is 0. Cash advance transaction is 0. This is 2. Credit limit is 1000. Let's give it as 2000. Payments is 201. Let's give it as 301. This is 139. 139. Tenure. Okay, tenure is probably 12 months. Okay. And then submit it. So it belongs to cluster 1. What about the data? You can see the data was also belonging to cluster 1. And with a similar kind of values, we are also able to predict it as a cluster 1. You can see I have also plotted some of these graphs so that it gives you an idea that these are the cluster 1 characteristics. So the cluster 1 characteristics are this, right? If you want to print any other chart instead of these graphs, you can also do those changes. It's very minimal changes. If you start exploring the code, you will be able to solve it. Well, I want to give credits to this particular project. One of my, I would not call him student because he's my friend. He's one of my colleague, you can say. So he helps me with a lot of my YouTube videos. So he's the one behind this particular project. His name is Kalash Jindal. I'll also give his profile link in the description below. He's the one who came up with this particular idea. He created the clustering model. He created the end-to-end Streamlit application. And there was another guy whose name is Jai Charole. He is my student, current student right now. And he helped me create the presentation of it. So that is all about the end-to-end project, guys. I hope you understood and learned something out of it. If you learned something, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the videos, because I'm finding it really difficult for finding the right reach and right customers or right people to watch my videos. Working hard on a lot of things, but not getting that enough views and enough traction. So I need your help. Please share it among your groups. Please subscribe my channel. And that's it for this particular video. In the next videos, I'll come up with different other projects as well, and Power BI projects, Tableau projects. Most of them are ready. It's just that I'm not getting the time to do videos, but I'll definitely come up with videos, and I'm planning to upload at least one video a day, be it a normal video or a short. That's it from my side. I hope you enjoyed this project, and thank you. Bye-bye.